trade association for the aerospace, defense, security, and space sectors. So we represent those 4 sectors by size. They're in the order that you see them on the screen. And we also wholly own a subsidiary called Farnborough International Limited, and you may well have heard of or been to the Farnborough International Air Show, which is run by FIL. At any given time, we have about 1,000 members, and 975 to 980 of those are supply chain companies and SMEs. Yes, we have the big boys, the Airbus, BAE Systems, Rolls-Royce on our memberships, but actually most of our membership by numbers is made up of supply chain companies up and down the tiers. And just to give you a set of priorities, we're all about helping our members grow and develop, grow themselves here in the UK as well as access markets overseas, and we can really distill what ADS tries to do. And this is quite typical for a trade association. I know SMMT are in the room and their priorities probably won't look a million miles from this, but I just wanted to highlight 2 areas which I'm particularly interested in. It's around supporting UK manufacturing and the supply chains that fuel that, and around encouraging our businesses to invest in technology and innovation, either themselves or through some kind of financing model such as R&D grant funding. A little bit of different background. A lot of what ADS does is around government relations, government affairs, and working with government to try and shape some of their emerging policy and strategy to be favourable towards business, towards manufacturing, and particularly to the sectors that ADS represents. So just a little bit of background. I won't do the slides about the 4th Industrial Revolution and all of that. It sounds like this audience is well aware of how all of that's developed. Why industrial digitalisation is particularly important at the moment. People in the room may well have heard of the industrial strategy, sort of a green paper, white paper typical process that government ran for about a year, and really about closing this productivity gap and what is the cause of that productivity disparity we have not only in different sectors in the UK, but actually on a global scale, and what is affecting global competitiveness. So that's particularly important for the aerospace sector because the aerospace industry already had what it called an industrial strategy through the Aerospace Growth Partnership, and that's referenced quite heavily through all of the government documentation. So after about a sort of a 9-month consultation period, out popped something called the Industrial Strategy White Paper. So that's a statement of government's policy, and hopefully we'll see strategies and funding programs built around that. So some key things came out of the industrial strategy. First, a set of 4 sector deals. And we know there will be several more sector deals, and in fact, aerospace, defense, and some of the industries that I represent will be putting in sector deals over the coming months and years. And also a set of grand challenges, which are, I guess, are more cross-cutting and not really sectorally applied. And we've seen funding around all of these. So whether you like the current administration or not, they don't usually do big announcements like this unless they've got funding behind it. So all of these areas have seen some really good funded programs. And the other thing that this industrial strategy process did was sort of gave birth to this Made Smarter review, led by Jürgen Meyer on behalf of industry. So thousands of companies, organizations, and individuals involved with this. I'm not going to claim that I've read that book cover to cover. It's quite thick. There is probably a digital version somewhere. But it's worth having a look at the recommendations and really becoming a part of the community that is lobbying government to try and get some of those recommendations implemented, because they are really the right recommendations from our perspective. And sort of bringing it right back down to aerospace, why is all of this important to ADS and its sectors? Well, actually, the Made Smarter review referenced aerospace a good number of times, but I just wanted to pick up 2 of the highlights. One was around what is around today. So the analysis showed that there's a massive business opportunity for aerospace, for UK aerospace, simply by adopting the technologies that are already in the market today. So this revolution, smart manufacturing, 4IR, whatever you want to call it, isn't about what's happening in the future. It's about what's happening today, and some of those capabilities are already in the market. The other interesting output of the analysis from the Made Smarter review around aerospace was it's actually aerospace, out of all the sectors that are analysed, had the biggest potential improvement. That may well be because we have a lot of legacy and the long life cycle issues compared to other manufacturing sectors. But it is as much to do with potentially new business models and new operating models that aerospace companies can find themselves working in, enabled by some of these digital capabilities. So hopefully that sets a little bit of context. My only kind of broad slide about 4IR is from an SME's perspective, from those sort of 980 companies on our members, and I, again, haven't claimed to speak to all of them, but the vast majority of the ones that I do speak to, that's what they see as 4IR, Industry 4.0, smart manufacturing. Again, lots of buzzwords. They look at it through a technology lens and believe it to be a technology set of challenges. And so they take this view that they are expected to be heading towards this shiny, pristine factory full of autonomous systems, full of machines that are making decisions for themselves, where the new value-driving commodity is data, bereft of people. This is what it should look like. Obviously, that's not reality. They also see 4IR as this bag of tricks, as this collection of technologies which they've heard of but don't quite know how to apply. Everybody's heard of 3D printing, additive manufacturing, augmented reality, cloud solutions. A lot of the SMEs, something that I come across, know that it's important, they understand, they get it, they know it's all developing fast. They're just struggling to know where to dip their toe and how to enter this market. I'm glad the Gartner curve was mentioned. This is, I think, the 2017 Gartner curve. The trouble with this technology is it's not homogeneous. It's not all flying in formation. There are different levels of maturity for that technology. And the complicating factor beyond that for supply chain companies is you can only measure the maturity of that technology based on where you are as a company. So it's a very individual, personalized journey that companies need to go on. And so you can't take a look at these big trends and say, the company down the road is doing this, and therefore I need to do something similar. It's a very personal journey. And really, companies who are looking at this from a technology perspective are in real danger by not asking themselves the right questions in terms of what are they actually trying to do, and is a technological solution really what they're after? How much is it better than what it replaces? And you can only do that if you're measuring your current manufacturing efficiency or the operational effectiveness of your machines. There's a danger of kind of over-engineering a solution by chasing a technology hype. And really, the underlying message is, this is innovation in this area is a contact sport. You need to really engage with the staff on the shop floor. The hype around robots taking over jobs, that's already hit shop floor staff and the engineers who are working at the manufacturing level. And so demystifying this becomes really, really important. And so to a hammer, I guess everything looks like a nail. And to, I guess, an industrial Internet of Things, every machine looks like it's needing to be connected. And that really is the wrong lens to be looking at this through. And so, yes, technology is important, but for me and all the kind of consultation that I've done with my members and all the reading I've done from companies of all different shapes and sizes, we're talking about four big buckets, of which technology is only one. And without the systems and networks, without the skills and competencies, without the business and the strategy and the overall digital mindset, your technology won't flourish, no matter what latest AR or VR headset or latest 3D printing machine you're looking to get. And each of those bullets, I guess I can stand here and do a 30-minute pitch on each of those bullets. But the one I try to focus on talking to our supply chain companies is around skills and competencies, because they're going to need to access these young graduates coming in with a digital mindset, and they're going to have to be attractive. My 12-year-old boy is very savvy with his iPad, has a whole range of has his own YouTube channel, which I find bizarre. But really, when he enters the manufacturing sector, and I'll make sure of that, when he enters the manufacturing sector, he's going to be expecting to work for a company that feels like it's using the technology that he's got access to and he's grown up with. That's going to be his expectation. And so, as if I haven't kind of diminished the value of technology enough, I used to be technology advisor, so now I'm looking after innovation and engineering, so I can talk about technology in a slightly more negative way. It's really about what's driving value in businesses, and this is the key message for SMEs. It's what is it that you're trying to improve, either from the perspective of what your customers are saying, or inefficiencies, or improvements in productivity. It really starts with the value drivers and therefore the business strategy. So, then there are lots of technologies that are out there, emerging, have been around for decades, companies like everybody in this room who can help them on that journey. But that company has to start with understanding what's driving value within their business as a starting point. And we're seeing too many SMEs looking at this from the perspective of what technology do I need, which is absolutely the wrong question. So some of the risks that we can already see in terms of taking that technology-centric view, and forgive the sort of the corny graphic on the financial black hole, there's a risk that you start building technology roadmaps which aren't linked to a wider business transformation strategy. Chasing the latest technology hype, you can see that your company down the road has got a set of VR headsets and their customers are coming in and it's all over social media and you can see their customers with the VR headset on. So it's quite tempting to say, how can I apply that to my business? And really then there are a number of other, I guess, pitfalls if you look at this only through a technology lens. In terms of questions I get back from supply chain companies when I go and visit them is, when should I start worrying about this? When should I start adopting? When do I need to go through this industrial revolution? When's the latest point I can join in? Actually, we need to start now. We need to get companies to learn about what this means. We need to get them to learn about where those applications of those technologies are. We need to get them to test in often an incubated or an isolated way, which doesn't affect their operations. But we need to get them to talk to understand how they can scale up once they've appreciated some of the benefits and measured them. And again, it's not something that companies, particularly supply chain companies, can watch from the sidelines. They can't watch what their customers are doing. They can't read a report from Accenture or Deloitte and hope to learn about this. They really have to start taking part, and all parts of their company need to take part because digitalization affects all parts of the business. And then they ask me, well, why should we do this now? Why can't we wait 5 years until this is more mature and adopt the latest? Some trends, I'm again grateful for some of the trends that the previous speakers talked about, but just in terms of the ones that I want to focus on, and this is an exhaustive list. The graph on the left there, average cost of sensing, we've already seen that sensors are essentially now a commodity item, even when you're talking about sensing in quite harsh environments. So the cost of sensing has come right down. And the other two graphs there, the top one is the cost of computing performance, and those are logarithmic scales, so it looks linear, but actually it's a ridiculous cost reduction in both computing power, but also data storage and data transfer, obviously brought on by technology like cloud and hybrid. Another important trend, we are seeing manufacturers up and down the supply chain start to pay attention to what servitization means to them. And again, it's a word that means different things to different companies depending on where they are in the supply chain and where they are on their maturation journey. But we are seeing it, and that's powered by connectivity. And so the graph there is kind of showing the commercial or the kind of consumer use of the industrial, the Internet of Things, 50 billion devices connected by the end of next decade. And I'm sure in the industrial space, it's not a dissimilar curve, obviously less devices. So we're seeing that connectivity powering a different mindset within management, within companies. So they are now able to break out of this CapEx idea and say, well, I can't afford to invest in huge new machinery, but actually they can translate that into OpEx and buy machine time as a simple model. So not only is it transforming their existing business models and practices, it's actually introducing them to new business models which simply didn't exist in their mind when they established their business. Additional digital services, all enabled by IoT and connectivity. Simulation has come on leaps and bounds. I started life within the Ministry of Defence doing FE analysis and hydrothermodynamics. And in terms of what you can see in the simulation space today, you only have to go out to the Dassault stand, and it's quite mind-blowing in terms of what you are capable of doing. And yes, again, digital twin is another hype, another buzzword, meaning different things to different companies, but actually to see a digital twin of an entire process or even an entire factory in action is quite awe-inspiring. We have tried this before. Just a quick video from one of our members.
Okay, so let me show you an agile project we're working on. Now, the power of data lies in both how we understand it and what we choose to do with it. So our job is to help our customers run the most efficient operations with the help of advanced data analytics and AI. This is how we create the most value for them. So take our railways. We're continuously streaming data from different sources, from the engine, environment, routes, travel times, and recording various conditions throughout the journey with automatic detection of anomalies.
So all this information is then combined with other data?
Yeah, like the weather, fleet timetables, maintenance record information, and even driver behaviours, all to form a rich data lake. And then we make the data think, identifying any issues and building a systems view, which gives an overview of the entire network, so each train can adapt to the real situation.
To avoid disruption and save money?
That's right. You can see here how a track irregularity has been detected. So the information is transmitted to the rest of the fleet and the central command, so the appropriate action can be taken. But it doesn't stop there. We use artificial intelligence to augment and enhance human judgment to identify the impact of changes and create best-case scenarios for managing time, cost, and performance. So then our customers can make the smartest decision in real time. We're working with all our sectors. So in addition to Rolls-Royce Power Systems, we're working with marine, nuclear, and civil and defence aerospace. We're thinking even further ahead to make the future a reality for all parts of our business. Welcome to R² Data Labs.
Apologies for the plug for a particular company in terms of Rolls-Royce, and again, it's a very glitzy, shiny, somewhat cheesy video. The message we're trying to give back to supply chain companies is, okay, this is not how what Rolls-Royce is going to look like, but in terms of the investment that a big company like that can put in, suppliers are going to have to interface with that. And this is the real key for SMEs, is if suppliers want to be part of a future supply, a global supply network, they're going to have to start to learn and work out how to interface with what their customers are doing. And this is the scale of what their customers are doing. And I could quite easily show you a similar video from Airbus or any one of our major manufacturers. So data is getting bigger, and just as importantly for our sectors, and we heard about sort of the autonomous vehicle sector as well, it's also getting faster. So when we talk about data, again, companies have heard of big data and kind of get their mind around that. Fast data is just as important, and in some cases, more important. And I thought I'd bring a scan in from my undergraduate physics book, because when I was being taught about these different scales and the SI units, I had no idea when I would be using petabytes and those sorts of things, but actually it's worth digging it back out because we're kind of in that world now. And we talk about big data companies, and we saw some logos in one of the earlier slides. So just to give you a few stats, first around big data, so about 0.5 terabyte of manufacturing data comes off each individual fan blade during the manufacturing process for Rolls-Royce. So about 5,000 to 6,000 fan blades a year, and that's 3 petabytes of data a year from one component. So you can already see why Rolls-Royce needs something like this, like their R2 Data Lab, because they are now a big data company. In terms of fast data, if you think about the kind of latest aircraft, the Bombardier C series, powered by a Pratt & Whitney engine, during a 12-hour flight, it produces as much data as Facebook does in a day. So if you're looking for the big data companies, they are actually in the aerospace defense industry now, and in the manufacturing sector more broadly. So just in terms of, just summarizing those, and there are lots of other trends. This is an exhaustive list. These are just the ones that we are trying to promote back to our membership in the first instance. So what's stopping faster adoption? Lots of reasons. Tried to summarize them kind of in eight buckets. And really, this kind of summarizes why SMEs are almost feeling crippled by this. You know, they know it's important, they're just struggling to get onto this journey. The kind of quote I often get or similar is, this is trying to change a fan belt while the engine is still running. Particularly in the aerospace sector, they are being asked to up their rates, improve quality, lower cost, faster time deliveries, because the global market is growing at such a pace. At the same time, they are being asked to go through this digital transformation to transform their business in a way which doesn't disrupt what they're doing. And really, the rest of my slides are all about how we are trying to showcase to smaller companies that you actually can do it. So the first example is in the kind of the inability to invest space. So for less than £1,000, one of our manufacturing companies, you may have heard of an AVPE in the southwest, in the Bristol area, improved their machines, got some data off of it, actually improved their operator awareness. Their operators felt that they were operating at somewhere near 75 to 80% OEE. It's actually when they got data off of the machine, retrofitted their existing machines with sensors and got the data off it, they realized they were less than 60%, and they were able to turn that data into actionable information. You can see a nice trend curve over the past sort of nine months where they are getting towards their 80%. So that return on investment was less than 2 weeks, because they got more capacity, able to do more work, ship more product out of the door. So you can kind of start to see where some of the returns on investment can be quite stark, quite quickly. And this isn't a low-tech company. This is one of the few SMEs that directly supplies to Airbus rather than through the tiers. Second example, NPL. Probably most people in the room have heard of the National Physical Laboratory. They're putting down, under this program called Digitally Enabled Supply Chains, a series of demonstrators up and down the country. The first one is in the Yorkshire and Humber region. And it's really an opportunity for SMEs to come in and understand the value of data. So for data in a very quality and certification-centric industry like aerospace, the provenance and traceability of data is really important. So the NPL demonstrator is all about having highly calibrated sensors which are traceable all the way back to the national standards, which of course NPL are the custodians of on behalf of the UK. And so they've put this relatively low-cost end-to-end system down, right from sensors all the way through to potentially new business models with some cloud and some AI and machine learning thrown in the middle. Again, just to demonstrate to companies that it's not about doing everything in one go, but they can start somewhere, and data acquisition and analytics is usually a good place to start. We talked about legacy being a huge barrier within aerospace. You know, companies have invested in infrastructure and big capital machinery, some of them 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they're finding it difficult to do that now. But actually, there's a lot of value that can be gleaned off of existing machines if you're able to access and take data off it. So retrofitting these machines. So Cincinnati H5 there, fitted with a full range of sensors. For those who are going to the MAC exhibition, I think in a few weeks' time, you'll be able to see that. Informatics, connecting machines that are remote from each other, and there's even a demonstrator at the AMRC around a manual Bridgeport lathe, and they've got vibration data and temperature data off of that to really start to understand where that machine is going to fail before it fails. So again, there are lots of examples out there that SMEs can go and look at, experience, and talk to experts, talk to independent experts, importantly. Another example, this isn't so low cost, so I don't know whether people have heard of the Aerospace Technology Institute. It's a £4 billion worth of investment out through to 2026. And one of the projects that's involved there is around taking COTS technology and trying to apply that in some of the harshest environments, in this case, near the rotors of helicopters, to understand failure modes and mechanisms within helicopters. And actually, the base technology is part of kind of the Amazon ecosystem. So it's quite a relatively low-cost 4-mic system, and they are using that as the base technology, as the sensor, to start to understand some of those predictive health monitoring and maintenance issues within helicopters. So it's a really interesting project using COTS, relatively low cost. This is one I particularly like. Hands up those in the room who have a smart energy meter in their home already or is on the verge of getting one. It's fantastic to learn about this company in Cambridge called Origami, where they can roll out some really affordable, smart energy monitoring systems across factories and shop floors and really start to derive value. They've even got some companies switching their high energy intensive operations during low energy tariff periods, companies who can afford to do microgeneration, feeding it back into the grid. And there's a great example on their website where they've worked with Tarmac that are actually making money from selling energy back into the grid because of the energy efficiency gains that they've managed to get. So, don't forget about the simple things like energy efficiency and those sorts of areas. That's all part of the digital revolution as well. So just in closing, I won't go through kind of line by line each of the slides. This kind of stuff needs to be done in collaboration, and that's the key here, and I'm glad the Major General at the beginning mentioned that word around collaboration. Big companies, even the likes of Rolls-Royce, aren't able to do this by themselves. They are collaborating up and down the supply chain, so there's a real opportunity for companies of all sizes. Think big, start small, scale fast, act now, I guess is, if I was going to get a tattoo, that's what it would say. And come and engage with us. We're a membership organization. I know SMMT are in the room, and I'm sure the messages they have around this fourth industrial revolution aren't so different. Come and find out more, come and talk to us. We'd love to hear about your case studies, your experiences, to help us feed the rest of the community. And a couple of opportunities to come and engage with us. So within ADS, we run a digital manufacturing special interest group, which is all about sharing knowledge, developing these case studies, trying to understand what good practice looks like, and seeing it and taking companies to go and touch and feel it. And the other opportunity, it'd be a shame if I didn't plug the Farnborough International Air Show. Hope to see many of you there. But for new for this year, we've got a new exhibit called Aerospace 4.0, which is about trying to bring this narrative to the aerospace supply chain companies, getting them to understand point solutions, but also integration and scale up, as I mentioned, is really important. And I think that's me.